Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this Monday. And for that, I'm joined on the line by our Dr. Jun-sok, Professor of Economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Yang, thank you for coming on today.
You're welcome.
Now, Professor, as the coronavirus outbreak continues, concerns over China's economic slowdown have been mounting, and South Korea's KOSPI and KOSDAQ both started off Monday with lower figures. Can you walk us through what's happening on the local and global markets?
Okay, well, as everybody knows, the United States had a really horrendous Friday last week. The Dow fell by 0.94%, S&P fell by 0.54%, and NASDAQ also fell by 0.54%. And this was attributed to increasing worries about the coronavirus. And the other markets, China, Hong Kong, and Europe, mostly followed this trend of concern about the coronavirus, and partially because the United States market did so badly on last Friday, Asian markets did not do well today either. The Chinese market, the Hong Kong market, and Nikkei market all fell by between 0.4% to 0.7%, and the KOSPI also fell by 0.64% today. But interestingly enough, the KOSDAQ actually rose a little bit. It had a positive gain of 0.4%, and that might be because, well, the Chinese people have been taking a break, an extended break, because of the coronavirus until February 9th, and there was some problems with gaining parts because of that. But from today, their factories outside of Wuhan area is running again, and that might be so the investors may be somewhat optimistic that there will be a recovery in the supply chain.
Thank you for that, Professor. And amid the outbreak, factories of global companies in China, like you said, have restarted operations from today. But South Korea's Hyundai and Kia Motors, which is facing a shortage of parts due to interrupted supply from Chinese firms, have still suspended operations. When do you think we should expect to see these companies running again?
Okay, well, the latest speculation today seems to be that the Hyundai and SsangYong will be able to start at least a partial production tomorrow from the 11th and full production from the 12th. And then, the Hyundai and Kia will start running from 11th and 12th. SsangYong will be able to start running from the 13th, and Renault Samsung will be able to start running from the 17th. So for Hyundai and SsangYong, they had about a week of factories halting, and then Renault had about 4 days of factories halting. Now, the interesting thing is the GM. Hello?
Yes. We apologize for the inconvenience.
Hello?
Yes?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor.
Oh, yes. Okay, excuse me. GM, the interesting thing is GM, because they have a worldwide supply chain and not just limited to China, they were able to continue their production. And it's interesting that the part that the Hyundai needed that they couldn't get was a wiring harness. And this is not an expensive part. This is not a technologically advanced part. It actually is a bunch of wires strung together by hand. And the most of that was supplied from China because China had inexpensive labor costs. Now, so this event, I think, make it clear to the manufacturers that perhaps we should be diversifying our supply chain so that we are not overly dependent on only one country.
Yes, we apologize for the technological inconvenience a while ago. Now, moving on to our next question. Professor, I'm hearing that the government will release its employment figures for December, as well as several other significant economic markets this week. What are some things to look out for?
Okay, well, the Korean statistics, as you mentioned, the two big ones are the employment report and the Green Book report, which shows how the economy is doing. Now, December, we were seeing at least the beginnings of a possible recovery, and at least for the early January, that trend seemed to be confirmed. If you look at some of the statistics for January, which came out like the price level, it's still not doing well, but it was doing better than December, so we were hoping for a continual recovery. But the coronavirus toward the end of the month may have put a damper on it. We'll have to see exactly how big a damper it is. And then from the United States, the important statistics will be budget deficit, and retail sales and industrial production. The United States is doing very well compared to other countries, but they have a lot of problems with the budget deficit. It's heading toward record levels, so that may put a damper on the global financial market as well as the U.S. economy. And the U.S. recovery is very much driven by consumption, and retail sales figures will show if this consumption is continuing to be strong or whether it's falling, and then we'll have to see whether the U.S. Growth will continue throughout the year.
All right, Professor Yang, we'll be watching those stories. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.